I'm Cesar Delgado from Back Roads of Illinois podcast. Our guest today is Geoff Cooper. Geoff is the CEO and the president of Renewable Fuel Association in St. Louis, Missouri, and Washington, D.C. It has offices in St. Louis and in Washington, D.C. How are you today? Geoff, welcome to join the show for a Monday afternoon.
Well, thank you for having me, Cesar. Happy to be here.
Geoff, what is the Renewable Fuel Association and who are the members?
Yeah, the Renewable Fuels Association is a national trade group. We represent U.S. ethanol producers. The association was founded in 1981. So we are actually entering our 43rd year in existence. And so, really, the Renewable Fuels Association has been around as long as the ethanol industry has been around in the United States. And our board of directors is exclusively made up of ethanol producers. We also have associate members who are vendors to the industry. They supply inputs and other products, and also supportive organizations like state corn grower groups and farm bureaus and other organizations that support our mission and vision. And I should say that mission is very simple at the Renewable Fuels Association. Our mission simply is to grow demand for American made renewable fuels like ethanol, as well as the co-products that come from our biorefinery facilities like distillers grains and captured CO2 and other co-products. And so the way we work toward that mission is through public policy advocacy activities, through regulatory activities, also through public relations and public affairs efforts, whether that is advertising campaigns or earned media initiatives. Really, our main objective at RFA is to increase the awareness around the benefits of ethanol and other renewable fuels, and to create a policy and market environment that is conducive to growth in the production and use of those renewable fuels.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's been a fantastic place to work. I've been at the RFA since 2007. So I've been around this organization and this industry for a while, and I got to tell you, I certainly found a home in the ethanol industry. I really enjoy what I do and the people I work for, and I'll tell you, this industry is really something special.
How do you see the demand for electric vehicle with the ethanol production in overtime?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a question we get quite often these days. I think people understand that there are more electric vehicles being sold, and obviously that is going to have an impact on demand for liquid fuels. And ethanol is a liquid fuel, and so there is some impact on ethanol. And you're right, electric vehicle sales are growing. We did see in 2023 about 8% of new cars sold were electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles. Um, but overall, when you look at all the vehicles on the road, all the cars and pickups and vans and SUVs, electric vehicles still only make up less than 2% of those vehicles. So we are going to be using liquid fuels for decades to come. The transition to electric vehicles is not going to occur overnight. And frankly, we don't think that the entire fleet ever transitions fully over to electric vehicles. There are a lot of consumers out there that don't want to drive an electric vehicle. They prefer an internal combustion engine for a variety of different reasons. But of course, there are those that do prefer an electric vehicle, and so our main message has been we should be giving consumers the option and giving them choice and allowing consumers and the marketplace to determine what sort of vehicle they want to buy. Um, because everybody is going to have different reasons for making the decisions they're making when it comes to purchasing vehicles. So, yes, we expect there will be an impact on ethanol demand long term from electrification of the light duty fleet, but it's going to happen slowly and gradually. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And at the same time that we may be seeing a reduction in liquid fuel use in light duty transportation, we expect there are going to be growth opportunities for ethanol in other transportation fuel markets, and specifically things like the aviation fuel market or heavy duty transportation. That's typically been, historically that's been diesel fuel, but we see applications for ethanol in trucking and in construction and farm machinery uses. And if we're able to tap into some of those new markets, we see phenomenal opportunities for growth in ethanol demand over the long.
It has pros.
Yes, there are pros and cons with electric vehicles, and I think we're starting to see more balanced conversation and discussion around those pros and cons in the media today. And this week, we've seen extremely cold temperatures and extremely inclement winter weather in many locations. And that's just one of the challenges that I think is coming to light when it comes to electric vehicles is those vehicles don't charge as well in weather like this. They don't keep their charge as long. And so those are the sorts of realities that I think are setting in with electrification. And again, it's been good to see some balance come into that discussion.
How do you see domestic and international export for ethanol production in near term and long term?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's another part of the demand picture that we are very focused on. I think a lot of people look at ethanol and they really think its only demand is in the U.S. Gasoline market, and that is not accurate. We are today exporting a lot of ethanol to other markets all around the world. In fact, about 10% of the ethanol we produce in the U.S. is exported to more than 50 countries, and it's being blended with gasoline in those nations for the same reasons that it's being blended here in the U.S. It's being used to reduce tailpipe pollution and clean up the air. It's being blended to reduce carbon emissions and reduce greenhouse gases. It's also being blended because of its lower cost and its ability to save consumers money. So the same benefits that we see from using ethanol in the U.S. are being seen in markets all over the globe today. And we expect to see that continue and expand in the future. We think the export market is really primed for substantial growth over the next 10 to 20 years as new countries that have never used ethanol start blending ethanol for the first time, and other markets that might be using 5% ethanol today expand to 10% or 15%. You look at a country like India, they've gone from virtually no ethanol 10 years ago to 10% ethanol today, and they are on a fast track to 20% ethanol blends in India. And so we're seeing those sorts of developments all over the world. And, ethanol production is growing in many of these countries as well. But we think there are going to be opportunities for the U.S. industry to export larger volumes to some of these countries to help them meet their own goals when it comes to reducing emissions and saving consumers money.
How about in the Middle East to export of ethanol in those countries like in Egypt?
Yeah, we have seen ethanol being exported to U.S. ethanol being exported to places like Egypt and the United Arab Emirates, which is surprising to people. You know, those countries that are often rich with oil resources and they've got lots of petroleum underground. But those nations, like the U.S. and like many other countries, want to address their pollution issues. They also want to do what they can to keep gas prices lower for consumers. And so there is interest in ethanol and using more ethanol, even in places that might be surprising, like Egypt and UAE and other parts of the Middle East. And it's always been heartwarming for me to think about, to picture an oil sheik in the Middle East driving around in a car that's got 10% ethanol in the tank. There's something gratifying about that to me.
Okay, how about sustainable aviation fuel, or SF is being next touted as next corn market, may be the case. We could see that in the future.
Yes, I think we will see aviation fuel as a tremendous growth opportunity and new market for corn-based ethanol. There is a process that's been in existence for years. It's called the alcohol to jet or ethanol to jet process, and so the technology exists to take ethanol and to convert it into
Mm.
basically jet fuel, and you end up with a product that is chemically indistinguishable. It looks exactly the same as petroleum-based jet fuel, and it acts the same in an aviation jet engine. Um, so there is a tremendous progress toward using corn ethanol as a feedstock or as a building block to make sustainable aviation fuel moving forward. Now, as you might expect, it is more expensive to do that. This is a new technology. It is, there are still things that are being learned and refined in that process. And so it's going to take some support and some tax policy to level the playing field and make the economics more attractive for producing sustainable aviation fuel from ethanol. And so that's where we see the SAF tax credit come into play and things like a low carbon fuel standard and the credits associated with that, and even RIN credits under the renewable fuel standard. Those are all things that can help reduce the cost of producing sustainable aviation fuel from ethanol. And we're seeing those things, move ahead quite rapidly. And when you think about the potential size of this market, there were roughly 25 billion gallons of jet fuel burned in the U.S. last year by the aviation sector. 25 billion gallons. Um, and again, the ethanol to jet fuel process, it actually takes more than 1 gallon of ethanol to make a gallon of aviation fuel. It takes about 1.6 or 1.7 gallons of ethanol to make a gallon of aviation fuel. So if we were able to capture even half of the aviation fuel market with corn-based ethanol derived fuels, you're talking about a market for 20 billion gallons or so, somewhere in the 17 to 20 billion gallon range, which would be more ethanol than we're producing today, that goes into the motor fuel marketplace. So the potential is enormous. That's why you're hearing so much. That's why you're seeing so much activity from our industry as we are pursuing this opportunity with sustainable aviation fuels.
Do you have final thoughts like to share about the Renewable Association with the organization?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having me today. I really enjoy your podcast. I think a final thought would just be to remind people that the future is incredibly bright for ethanol and specifically for corn-based ethanol. Again, I think it's easy for people to look at the move toward electric vehicles and they see more Teslas out on the road and they think that means trouble for the future of the ethanol industry. But as we've talked about here today, we see enormous opportunity, not only in the future of the light duty liquid fuel space. Um, we didn't even talk about E15. That itself is a great opportunity in the motor fuel market. But then we get into things like sustainable aviation fuel, maritime fuel, which we didn't talk about, and heavy duty. And we see, really the sky is the limit for ethanol moving forward. And again, it all boils down to ethanol having very attractive properties and benefits. It's low carbon, it's low cost, it's cleaner burning, it's renewable. So those are all features that, whether you're flying an airplane or driving a car, make ethanol a very attractive fuel for transportation.
I forgot about it. Maybe next time we could talk about E15.
Absolutely. I would enjoy coming back and we could spend probably 15 minutes alone on what's happening with E15.
Thanks, Geoff. Thanks to be here on the show for this afternoon.
Well, thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure that you joined the show for today. Thanks. You're welcome to join the show anytime.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
This is Geoff Cooper from Renewable Fuel Association out of St. Louis, Missouri. From back roads of Illinois, have a great day.